Maplestory the Novel, Season 1, Sacred Tears. Written by Tatsumari Korisuno. Chapter 22, Part 1. Prepare. So many things went wrong in creating the future of peace as revealed in Ariel's Mirror of Time. With every look in the mirror, Euphoria moved closer to that future, but the disaster still loomed in the shadows. Darkness was gone from the world. Dane and Ariel achieved what they set out to do. It was gone from the world, but they hadn't vanquished it. Ariel now clearly saw the one who would bring about the disaster she saw in the mirror, Dane. She now understood why the Monk of the Red had told her she had blinded herself.
I never even considered you to be the cause of the disaster we're trying to avert, Dane. I believed you would be the one to find the answer,
she thought, her feet beginning to feel the cold of the snow. With darkness gone from the world, Euphoria began to heal. Food began to grow again. The omens were gone, and the people all started to seem happier. But now, she couldn't allow Dane the freedom to come to the Temple of Time and tried to dissolve her contract with him. When it failed, she remembered that Dane also had to dissolve the contract willingly. Doubting that he would consent to it as he was now, she blocked his entrance to the temple by sealing the entrance created especially for him. Dane now wielded darkness mixed with anti-magic, creating something even worse. Even Minerva might not be able to stand up to this power forever. She could only watch as Dane moved through the remaining dark places of the world, gathering like-minded people to him. The first he recruited was the former shamaness of Azwan. Soon after, Arcarium and Drakova joined his cause. These umbral leaders slowly gathered more followers around them into a new threat, calling themselves the Black Wings. Reen became catatonic, wandering through the temple with Clank at her side, often visiting the Hall of Memory to relive her life with Will. She wasn't sleeping much either, frequently screaming for Will when she woke. Ariel sometimes cast a spell over her mind, allowing her to sleep peacefully for a few hours, but Reen's tortured mind often broke the spell, allowing the nightmares to return. To honor Reen's love, Ariel created a new pseudo-body and set up a monument in Al-Neth, overlooking the snowfields far below. Standing atop was a statue of Will holding a book in one hand and reaching out with the other as if waiting for Reen to take it and follow him. At the foot of the monument sat a small brass ring set into the stone, a token of the life Reen and Will might have shared in the future.
I'm so sorry, Will,
Ariel whispered, about to disintegrate her body and return to the temple when she met Dane face to face. The sight made her jump back, calling a flame to her hand.
No, Ariel. There was no need to become violent,
Dane said calmly, pulling the hood from his head to reveal his face. His cheeks had thinned and his eyes seemed dull, but he was still the man she loved, the only thing holding her back.
You know why I hold a spell at the ready,
she sneered, holding her stance to unleash the flames brewing in her palm. Miserably, Dane smiled and nodded, heavily sighing while dropping his head.
I know,
he finally answered with a muted whimper.
But I've done it. I've rid the world of its darkness. Now everything is so bright and happy.
Yes, but what cost to you? You absorbed all of the world's darkness,
pressed Ariel, raising her hand further, readying to strike.
The cost is great, my love, but this is what needed to happen. And now our daughter can wipe this world away to begin anew with the power I will give her. Darkness will never rise again. All I need is for you to allow me entrance to the temple.
he explained, extending his hand to her. Ariel dispelled her attack, standing with shoulders back and footing firm.
I cannot allow you within the temple as you are. The darkness within you must first be purged. Rain is half-human and is unable to resist the influence of darkness completely. Who's to say what would happen if she were to give in to the throes of his power?
Dane closed his hand, the hopeful, sad smile fading into a blank stare. When he spoke again, there was an edge in his words.
Ariel, do you remember our contract? There's a line that states, and I quote, "The power of our son or daughter shall be to the benefit of all once the research of the contracted Dane Altur is completed. Upon completion, Dane shall pass his knowledge and power to the son or daughter which will erase darkness from the world and create a new world." End quote. We both wrote this contract when I first came to the temple, remember?
Clenching her jaw, Ariel nodded, looking away from him.
That was before you became this. I heard the voices of Tahir and Will before you killed them. You have succumbed to the influence of the darkness.
Ariel growled, facing Dane with hard eyes. Dane let out a long breath, and the air around him became uneasy as he closed his eyes and lowered his brow.
I tried to stop their lives from being lost. You must believe me. But the darkness was so powerful that I did not anticipate its overwhelming power. I have since risen above it. I now control it. It does not control me.
Dane's voice tremored as if on the verge of tears, sometimes hitching as he spoke.
And what of the other clerics and acolytes? Were they victims of your inability to maintain control?
Dane lowered his head and arms as Ariel slowly approached him.
Dane, my love, Rain is in much pain right now. She loved him greatly, and the darkness tore him away from her. Your power killed him.
Ariel explained, motioning back to the monument.
I don't think exposing her to so much concentrated darkness would be wise. Her heart has been shattered, and we both know how malleable the human heart is when it's in pain.
Silence fell over them as they stood in the snow, but the tension surrounding them filled the small valley. A presence colder than the Alneth winds blew through Ariel, making her back away from Dane as whispers hung thick in the air.
You would deny me the right to see my daughter. You would deny the promise of our contract?
He growled, chains springing up from the ground, all tipped with spears aiming for Ariel.
As you are, yes.
The sound of metal slamming into rock rang behind her as a chain stuck in the ground with unseen speed, the links singing as they pulled tight next to her cheek. The spines on each link brushed her skin, making her bleed. Surprise launched her away from it, her skin healing over but leaving a scar. The strange feeling made Ariel reach up to run her hand over the raised skin, her eyes widening and her breath coming in short gasps as her hands began to shake. Even in a pseudo-body, she could heal wounds without leaving any trace.
A scar? But how? I should be able to—
That's the first scar you've had, isn't it?
Smiled Dane, raising his head enough to see her from under his brow. The shadows around his eyes made them glow even brighter.
Mixing darkness and anti-magic like this, what could you possibly hope to gain from something so terrible?
Ariel asked, holding her hand behind her and beginning to weave a disintegration spell for this body.
I hope to rid the world of its darkness. And I have, but anti-magic was needed to do so. I call it black magic. And it can even kill deities.
He shouted, hurling another chain at Ariel's heart. The pseudo-body disappeared in a plume of smoke as the chain drove through it, burying itself into the ravine wall.
You may think you can protect Rain by blocking my path, Ariel, but I will come. I will come, and she will fulfill her destiny.
He shouted to the skies. Behind them, Orchid and Lotus shivered across the snow, watching the scene before them.
We have to do something,
Orchid hissed. Lotus shook his head, pulling Orchid away and leading her back through the woods they had lived in for the past month.
There isn't much we can do. We tried to make sure human Dane didn't get lost in his research, and it happened anyway.
Lotus seethed. With a heavy sigh, they gathered what little food they had within their makeshift shack to have a meal. Life was difficult in the Alneth region, but at least they weren't anywhere near Dane and his lunacy. Lotus' eyes widened as they ate, darting back and forth as he dropped his spoon.
Lotus? What's the matter?
Orchid asked.
It isn't Dane in control. It's the darkness. It's in control of him. And the darkness wants to destroy everything. He's not after Reen to make the world a better place. He's after Reen because she can destroy everything.
Then why doesn't he just go after Ariel? She has the same amount of power and is way more experienced.
That's exactly the point. Ariel knows how powerful she is and can use that to resist the darkness. Reen doesn't, and she's half human. Reen's an easier target.
So, all she has to do is use more power and she'll be fine.
Reen still thinks like a human. The darkness could easily corrupt her.
So?
Orchid huffed, taking another bite of food while Lotus growled, gripping his hair and stomping around the room.
You're so annoying sometimes,
He growled, sighing hard.
Look, the darkness can't do much damage by itself. It started a famine and influenced people to hurt each other, but that can be stopped by enough people just being nice to each other. Dane absorbing the darkness gave it an avatar. And just from the feeling we saw over there, the darkness has enough power to destroy a continent. But Dane's body has limits, and the darkness doesn't want to destroy just a continent. It wants to destroy everything. All existence.
As Lotus spoke, Orchid lowered her brow as thoughts connected in her mind and realization spread across her face.
So, the darkness needs a more powerful body.
Orchid whispered as Lotus nodded.
Yes! And since Reen is still so young, she doesn't know she could easily resist or even destroy the darkness outright. Can you imagine how powerful the darkness will become if it gets a hold of her?
But Reen is back in the Temple of Time. So long as she stays there, she'll be safe.
Didn't you hear what Dane said? He can hurt deities or even kill them. The darkness within him has evolved. It's no longer a matter of if, Orchid. It's only a matter of when.
Clouds of sulfur and oxides billowed as Hilda mixed more and more ingredients into her potion. With the help of Arcarium, she enhanced her youth potions by 100-fold, extending the time she needed to consume them by years. The door opened as she poured the last of her liquefied moonlight in, and a lone figure came in on gliding steps. His cloak filled the doorway, thundering as it caught the breeze behind him.
Did your meeting with Ariel not go as planned?
Asked Magnus with a smirking growl, reclining on a broken couch watching Hilda.
That was not my purpose, Drakovia. I wanted to test her resolve to keep that girl from me.
Sloe answered, reaching for a vial of a dark substance and consuming the contents.
And how is her resolve?
Asked Hilda, maneuvering her hand over her potion and drawing it into one of a dozen bottles sitting within a cabinet.
Quite high, but even that will fall. Are your armies ready, Hilda?
Hilda darkly smirked as she shut the cabinet, walking to Magnus and leaning back against him. He put a hand around her waist and held her firmly against him, prompting sensual surprise from Hilda.
I am waiting for one last ingredient from my spell to complete. Once finished, we will have a legion of the undead at my command.
Magnus glared at Sloe from under his brow.
My specters are ready at any time. Thanks to the power you've given me and the help of Arcarium, I've multiplied and strengthened my forces.
Magnus grinned, revealing a broken fang amidst his teeth.
Good. And what of Arcarium? Where are his forces?
Neither Hilda nor Magnus could answer his question, shrugging and pointing where Arcarium last was. As Sloe walked to the room, the old alchemist's giant snake familiar opened its eyes and reared from its sleeping position. Spreading its hood wide, its tongue flickered while locking its unblinking gaze on him.
Ah, Master Sloe. I was wondering when you would return. I have some concerns that I must bring before
Arcarium, are your forces ready?
Sloe barked, staring at Arcarium blankly.
That is what I wish to discuss with you. Shouldn't my force of serpent sorcerers be the vanguard? Magnus's forces will only draw unwanted
I
attention.
assigned the right flank to you for that express purpose. You will launch a surprise attack while Magnus and his forces draw out Ariel's vanguard.
Yes, but he is brutish and unrefined. Shouldn't the position of vanguard be for someone with the power to move through the front lines unimpeded? My forces would be much better suited for the task. It was I who assisted in creating the Gran Umbra Arca, after all.
Your experience with dark alchemy is unparalleled, but you have no military or battle experience, let alone in heavy combat. Your forces will be destroyed in an instant. You will have the right flank.
But Master,
You will take the position I give you. Is that understood?
Asked Sloe, whispers hissing around them. Arcarium bowed his head as Sloe left. Once Sloe had gone, the old alchemist tightened his fists and clenched his jaw.
The vanguard is mine by right. My research propelled Magus Sloe to the heights he now stands.
Arcarium seethed to himself.
I should be the only one Sloe needs. Magnus has been here for only a few months, and Hilda focuses on her eternal life and beauty. The two of them fornicate more than they contribute.
His thoughts swirled and mounted until a dark smile spread across his face. Gathering his solid jade skull focus, he further woke his familiar and summoned a force of his serpent sorcerers. He was determined to win Sloe's favor as he left the confines of his laboratory, leading the company through the streets of Kritas when an old woman flagged him, calling that she had an urgent message.
What do you want?
Arcarium barked, standing straighter and tilting his head enough to glare at her from over his nose.
Where are you going with such an impressive army?
The woman asked, a burlap hood pulled low over her eyes.
What business is it of yours? Tell me what you want.
Arcarium demanded. The woman pursed her lip, her fist clenching before continuing.
I am an oracle for the Keeper of all time. You are marching to Ariel's temple, are you not?
Ariel is the goddess of time. There is no other deity.
Listen,
The woman interrupted.
how do you plan to approach her temple? You are but a mortal, and Dane was the only human allowed within its walls by Ariel, with a gate made specifically for him.
Dark alchemy will pave the way.
Arcarium sneered, beginning to walk away until the old woman caught his arm. Arcarium tried to pull away, but she had much more strength than he thought possible.
There is another way.